Well, thanks for joining us once again. I'm Dr. John O'Keefe, your breakthrough specialist and host of the television show Celebrity Entrepreneur. I know you have a lot of choices, and thanks for being with us. Today, I'm very excited because we have with us Jane Ferguson, who's a part of Challenged Athletes Foundation. And she's going to tell us some exciting things that are happening to this very special organization. Thanks so much, Jane, for being with us today.
Appreciate you having me here. I know that your focus is usually on entrepreneurs and entrepreneurial success stories, so I really appreciate you taking the time for a sort of a public service announcement here about one of my favorite organizations.
Absolutely, that's what it's all about. And along those veins, let me tell you a little bit about Jane herself. She is, of course, a business individual. She has background as a strategic planning and marketing development for mid-sized firms, and she, in fact, is the principal, right, of Aberus Group. And so one of the key things when she's not doing business with some of the most powerful people is that she's helping a great organization, and that's what we're going to talk about today. So, Jane, tell me a little bit about this organization, the Challenged Athletes Foundation.
Well, it's a really amazing organization. What they do is they get equipment and training and support for people with disabilities so they can participate in whatever sport they love. It's got a marvelous story of how it got founded, if I could tell you.
Absolutely.
There was a fellow named Jim McLaren who lost his leg, one of his legs, in an accident, and decided that that wasn't going to let him stop participating in sports because he was quite an athlete before the accident. So he became quite an accomplished triathlete despite his disability. And in fact, he went on to compete in the Ironman, like the Ironman in Kona in Hawaii.
Oh, yeah.
And not only did he finish the race, but he finished in the top 20%, competing against other able-bodied athletes. And it was a big inspiration to people, both people with disabilities and people without. And what happened next was, in some ways, quite tragic. He was in a triathlon right here in Orange County, and a van went through a barrier at an intersection and hit Jim on his bike. And when he woke up in the hospital, the doctors told him he would never walk again. He's quadriplegic. He'd have limited use of his hands. And where most people would quit, Jim just went to work, learned how to ride a bike with some special equipment and some bands, and continued to be this amazing, inspirational person. So some of his friends got together and, as a fundraiser, held a triathlon. And the goal was to raise $25,000 to buy Jim a van that he could drive with his hands. Because one of the difficult things when you're disabled is your loss of independence. So they were helping Jim get his independence back. And the triathlon raised $48,000. So everybody was very excited about this. And afterwards, some people with disabilities were congratulating the organizers and pointed out that they could help a lot more people with this type of event. And that's how the annual Challenged Athletes Triathlon was born. And since then, in less than 20 years, the organization has absolutely mushroomed, and they've helped thousands of individuals all over the world, really, including, sadly enough, but in an inspirational story, a lot of veterans returning from Iraq and Iran.
Sure.
As a matter of fact, they noticed the need and began helping the veterans. And they've actually formed a special department, if you will, of challenged athletes called Operation Rebound that focuses specifically on helping our veterans and first responders that have been injured in the line of duty.
Wow, that's incredible to be able to be a part of that organization. So how did you get involved in Challenge Athletes? How did that happen?
I'm just one of many thousands of people that volunteer a little bit of time. What happened was a couple of years ago, there was a speaker at the Orange County Triathlon Club. The club does a marvelous job of supporting the annual triathlon. They get their members to compete, and they hold a fundraiser. So to get everybody to come to the fundraiser, they had a couple people come and speak at their monthly meeting. And they also showed this video. They had some inspirational videos, and they show the kids with the prosthetics that are out running with this look of joy on their face, and it can't help but be heartwarming. But the person that got to me was a vet. He came and spoke to our group, and he spoke about losing both of his legs in Iraq and what it was like to come home. And he said he couldn't drive a car, he couldn't get a job, he couldn't support his wife. He said he sat on the couch all day and drank beer and wanted to die. And then somebody put him in touch with challenged athletes, and the organization got him the equipment and the training to learn to row, and then supported him to go and compete in rowing events. And he got quite good, and he was competing internationally in some of his events. And he stood up there and said, today I have a car that I can drive with my hand. He said, well, first he said, I was an athlete, I was an alcoholic with a death wish.
Wow, yeah.
Today, I have a car I can drive with my hands. I have a job. I have a full life. But most of all, I'm an athlete. And it gave me chills. I just got what it was that the organization was doing. And they weren't just helping people compete. They were changing people's lives. And it was so inspirational for me. And one of the things that inspired me a great deal was the fact that virtually everyone that they help turns around and helps others. So it has everything they do has this marvelous chain reaction.
That is, I'm just immersed in listening to your story. Isn't that amazing?
It's a privilege to help the organization. It truly is.
I have a question. I was reading through some of the bios and questions, and this is amazing. Is it true you're going to really climb Mount Kilimanjaro with some of the challenged athletes? What's that all about?
It's actually a tremendous opportunity, I think. There's a group of people that are climbing Kilimanjaro to raise money for challenged athletes. And the group was organized by Paul and Denise Fajek, who have actually climbed all 7 summits, a feat that very few people have, I think, a little over 300 people have accomplished.
Wow.
And here, both of them have done it. And in the course of climbing Everest, they also got a group together that trained and climbed to base camp with them. And in the process, they also raised $100,000 for challenged athletes. So this past year, they thought, that was a pretty neat thing. Let's do it again. And so they got a group of people together that all committed to raising money for challenged athletes, and they're climbing Kilimanjaro together. And I met Paul and Denise a few months ago. The group was actually pretty much formed, and I felt pretty honored that they included me in this. So everybody is there. The trip actually has a few parts. Everybody has individually committed to raising money for challenged athletes, and 100% of the donation goes to challenged athletes. We're all paying for our own way there and for the climb. And in addition, we're taking with us some wheelchairs, and for their racing wheelchairs for people who can't walk.
Sure.
And that in itself is an example of how the athletes give back. There's a marvelous woman, Beth, who lives in San Clemente, who lost the use of her legs in a biking accident. And so she got a hand cycle so she could continue to race, was in what's called the Kilimanjaro Challenge a year or two ago, and met a group of athletes, a group of 10 athletes that shared one racing chair among them. So they had to decide at events who would get to do it. And when she left, they wanted her to leave her bike with them. And she had to explain, well, it was custom made for me. But she said, I will get you a bike. I promise you I will get you a bike. And Beth so far has 7 hand cycles that we're taking with us. And so after we climb, we are going to meet with these athletes that she met with and give them these hand cycles.
Wow.
And there's another part of the climb that's pretty fun too.
Tell us about that.
One of the fellows that is climbing with us, Chad Crittenden, is a challenged athlete himself. He's below the knee amputee, and he actually was on the show Survivor. He's an inspiration in and of himself. So, and a whole lot of fun. So the group has been hiking and training and raising funds for the past few months to go, and we leave early next month.
That's an incredible story. You know, and the reason why it's important, the work is important of itself, but in talking to entrepreneurs, and as you know, when I train entrepreneurs and business people, whether you're a celebrity or an athlete, whoever you are, it's important that something else follows as well as creating abundance in the process. And that's the process of giving back. Now, it's got to be fundamental, and it's got to be on your own, and you have to have that desire, like Jane found this organization to help herself. So what I'm asking you to do is, as you listen to Jane's story today and the others that we have on the program, as you move through and build your companies and create wealth and abundance, I'm going to ask you to identify a charity, an organization that's important to you. Because when you do that, that element of cause and effect kicks in. What you do more of comes back to you. If you give more out there, there's a process there, it's an energy, you're going to get more back. And so this is a particularly heartwarming story because of it's an incredible process. So if people out there are making that decision and they want to help out, what if they're interested in helping, where should they go? What should they do? Can you tell us?
Can you put the website up when?
We'll do that.
Okay, it'd be great if you could donate. And again, 100% of the funds go directly to challenged athletes. So there's a website where you can go and you can donate online, or you can print out a form and send the donation into challenged athletes. Don't send it to me, send it directly to challenged athletes. And it would be just great. Donations of any amount are appreciated. Wonderful.
So now you've created a lot of great stories. Is there one story, another story that we could hear from you that really is inspiring for about someone, or that you really key in on?
Oh, there's so many. But I guess, yes, there's one in particular. It's about Sarah Reinhardtson. Actually, I could tell a few stories about
Sure.
Sarah. She lost her leg to a disease when she was young, and had a tough time competing in sports. As a matter of fact, her mother signed her up for a soccer team, and the coach sent her over to kick a soccer ball against a wall while the other kids practiced and played.
Wow.
So, yeah, and when Sarah tells that story, she kindly leaves out the name of the coach. But as you can imagine, it was tough growing up without a leg. And Challenged Athletes has helped Sarah compete. She was very much inspired by Jim McLaren, and went on to become the first woman to compete to finish the Ironman in Hawaii, the Ironman triathlon.
Wow.
But the amazing thing about Sarah is how much she gives back. A young boy that has the same, has lost the use of, or lost one leg for the same reason that Sarah did. And this little boy from an early age now understands that he can compete in sports because he's seen Sarah do it.
Wow.
And Sarah's, gone to his swim meets, met his family, and by being a role model, both this boy and his family understand that he can have as full a life as any kid with two legs. And it's a tearjerker.
That's an amazing story. So there you have it. Think about that. And when you think about what Jane said today, I hope that something will spark inside, and check out the organization and get involved yourself somehow, some way, so that you can create that abundance in other people's lives. Thank you so much, Jane, for being with us today. I know how busy you are. I appreciate you being here.
Thank you. It's kind of you to do this. I really appreciate it.
You bet. You bet. And so, thanks again for you joining us. This is Dr. John O'Keefe, your breakthrough specialist and the host of Celebrity Entrepreneur. Remember, if you think you can, you can. If you think you can't, you're right.